Hey everybody, welcome back to Andertons TV, and I have a very special guest today, Yolanda Charles, amazing bass player, MBE, just throwing it out there, we've had that conversation, and we've got a mutual friend, thank you Tony for putting me in touch with Yolanda, and thought we'd just get you on to talk about bass. So thank you very much for coming down to Guildford. I'm still struggling to get over the fact that you've been doing this professionally for 30 years.
Yes.
So yes, that's freaked me out. But let's go back then to growing up and influences and what was it that first attracted you to this instrument?
Well, I don't come from a musical family, but they're musical in the sense of just big fans. Mm-hmm. So I was raised with a lot of music in the house. My dad's stereo was mega important in the house. We weren't allowed to touch it. You know, had to have a little tutorial about how to lift the needle and put it back down again. And if we did it a little bit too heavy, he'd hear us in the house and say, "Wait!" So we get told off. So I had this respect for how to treat records and why they were so important to my dad was because of the content, the actual music on the vinyl. And so I learnt respect that way round. And that just played through to just me being really interested in music and then getting into it into a more of a fan kind of way. And then when I went to school, I got the opportunity to play instruments, and over the years brought home various various instruments. You know, one day it would be I started with recorder, then clarinet. I brought home a trumpet. My mum says, "You're not playing that in here," and I said, apparently you can buy something to put in it so it's not loud, but they didn't give me that, so I just sounded terrible. Brilliant. For a while. I played steel band in the steel pans, and my parents were really supportive. My mum was really supportive about me playing, and then I found the bass through playing guitar, rejecting the guitar and going, "No, I don't want to play guitar, I want to play bass." And that was when I was about 15. And
what was on the vinyl then? Because I kind of feel, that my dad, same vinyl thing. And if you, like you say, I think I managed to, between myself and my brother, I think we went through at least 2 styluses by not putting it on, and then he'd go nuts every time it was, had to replace that. But what was being played, and how much of that do you think has come through into sort of influencing, your own taste in music?
Well, Mum was into ska,
right?
Blue beat, and quite a lot of some reggae, but not the heavier stuff. Yeah. My dad was into much wider range of material. Actually, Mum was into the crooners as well. Okay. She liked Pat Boone. Okay. She liked Dean Martin. Was on there.
Dean Martin. Everyone's got to love a bit of Dean Martin.
Right, and so I got exposed to a nice range actually through both of them. And both of them like Nat King Cole, and I'm a big fan today because of that as well. And Mum actually had some Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich records.
Okay, all the drummers.
I didn't quite understand that one.
They'd have had some smoking bass players, I presume, on their solo stuff.
There was a couple of LPs with just drums.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was quite surprised about that. I'm sure that's how I remember it. I'm sure it's wrong. I remember the cover, but I wasn't allowed to touch that record. Yeah. Mum was a big Bob Marley fan. Yeah. Massive, and I am too, and that's fed through to my respect for Ashton Barrett, who, Family Man Barrett, the bass lines he came up with. I think that's really influenced me massively. Dad was into James Brown, big time.
I was going to say, there must be something kind of, funk, disco, soul, where like the bass line was just, that's the whole beating heart of the whole song.
Well, I mean, growing up in the 80s, it was a fortunate decade to be growing up, and I was born in the 70s, but growing up in the 80s, so that was formative years stuff, so I got to hear a lot of those brilliantly classic records when they came out. And the first record I ever bought was Raising Hell by Run DMC, actually.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
I had a Run DMC Trivial Pursuit question over Christmas, actually, which I think I got wrong, because I think I said I thought it was Public Enemy, and they said, no, it's Run DMC. I was like,
right, there you go. So then I'm the youngest of 4 kids as well.
Right.
So I had my siblings bought their records, and I got to listen to all of those before I could even buy records. So yeah, it was all really big, full of music in my house.
Yeah.
Big influence in the house.
Sounds like the school that you were at was obviously supportive, and I think that's something now I'm kind of seeing with my kids. And It doesn't feel like, you mentioned, you had I'm sure all kids have to recorder, but the idea of just being, lent a trumpet or a clarinet or anything like that now, that's not terribly common. So was that, you had lots of opportunity. So I guess you must be sort of grateful and thankful that was more normal perhaps back then.
Yeah, there was a program, I think everybody had to play a recorder. It's just part of the music lesson, so no one could actually opt out. And those that liked it or were encouraged to carry on could. So I had a lot of opportunity through my school. I mean, I didn't leave with any qualifications except for music and English. Yeah. So those are the only 2 things I was interested in. But yeah, it was great then, I think, for that. Yeah.
And you did the guitar, so the 6-string guitar into bass, complete opposite of me. I did the whole, surely 4 strings is easier than 6, so I'll go there. And then I did that for about a year, and then went, no, I think I need to, I'm going to try the guitar now. So how long were you, what is it, I think, about, what is it about the bass and bass players that draws you to it? That, because I often kind of think that the electric guitar, it's, most pop songs are driven by some sort of melody that you feel like you can sort of replicate on the guitar. So I sort of feel it, you can kind of see why the guitar is perhaps a more widely played popular instrument. Yeah,
it's true. It is.
And then when you meet a bass player, there's something else in there that's just like something's inside, which is just going, I want to be the part of the rhythm section, the beating heart of it all, kind of. So what was it about that?
Well, I can speak as an adult now and say I understand that bass has this role, and I like that about it and this about it. But I think as a kid, I heard bass lines as melodies.
Right.
And I came from that era where bass really featured in the music. So they were melodies that were weaving through the songs. Yeah. And often they would be bass-led, because I was listening to funk, R&B, isk, and soul. And they were hook lines. Yeah. They were memorable hook lines. You could sing the riff. And so to me, the guitar actually wasn't featuring as massively, in that style of music, I'd say. So often it was synths and keys. Yeah. And even the keys would play the bass line. It would still be a bass line, just not on the bass. Yeah. And so it didn't matter to me at the time. Now, of course, I'm not having that. But still, I do appreciate a good synth, but I still feel that the bass does it best. But it did have a role, and those melodies are the thing that appealed to me the most in the music.
When you finished regular secondary school, did you go on to a music college there, or did you just go sort of headlong into a musical career, or were you doing a normal 9 to 5? Or?
Well, I was a bit of a dropout, right? As I said, with my 2 O levels, and it was terrible. I thought the school was terrible because I didn't do well at the school, and then I met a friend about 10 years ago that went to the same school, and she said, oh yeah, I got 14 O levels, and I thought, what? There were 14 on offer? How did you do that? She was super bright, but you could have done well. Yeah. I was just allowed to fail because back then you didn't have all this sort of safeguarding and all of that like you have now. But no, I did attend one of the first, I think it was probably the first popular music course in the country actually, back in 1988.
Is it? Did you grow up in London?
Yeah.
So was that the place in Wapping that was doing the bass lessons?
No, this was a part of the actual sixth form college.
Oh, I see. The sixth form college did a music thing.
Yeah, it was a part of the education system. It was one of the first official formal. Well, it wasn't really a qualification, but you could do a course playing pop music.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
it was just great fun.
Because my secondary school education, similar time to yours, was, music was about some very elderly teacher that probably looked a bit like Beethoven would put some, classical piece of music on, and you'd talk about it. Well, I say he would talk about its
at you about it,
and you'd all flick bits of paper at each other in school. And I don't remember any sense that there was any way as part of the curriculum to actually take a relatively modern instrument and learn it properly. You know, so you I guess to a certain extent fortunate that your school must have been one of the first, as you say, in the country to do that sort of thing.
It was a tertiary kind of building, so it wasn't actually within the school, so that it was kind of built for that, the department. So they had, you know, decent amount of tech there for us to learn how to do some production work and stuff like that.
And in terms of then just finding some opportunities to play, that must have been quite daunting, wasn't it? So you're, you know, what, 16, 17, 18 years old, bass, you know, playing bass, and you just want to get out there. How did you do that?
Well, in my case, I didn't want to get out there.
Okay.
I was terribly shy. I loved the instrument and I loved the music, but I didn't necessarily want to be a performer.
Okay.
I went there because I didn't know what else to do. I'd already started working, because at 15 you could work.
Right.
So I was working in a supermarket, so I could have just gone and done that and that would have been fine. So I didn't really think of music as a career. I wanted it to be, but I didn't know how. So I just thought, well, I've got this opportunity to do a free course. I don't have to pay for it, because we weren't within, you know, we didn't have the means to do that kind of thing. So I went and did this free course, and it changed my whole life.
Right.
The whole pathway began from that point onwards, really, in terms of getting work as a session musician and all that.
So it started with sessions then, so that you could, and that was that the way that you dealt with your lack of confidence, maybe, just that you didn't, it was, you know, perhaps you're only in front of another 4 or 5 people, you're not in front of, you know, 500 people.
It was just, it's the way that I've done life. It's just that what comes with the thing that you want to do, you just have to do the thing because you want to do that thing. So I want to do this thing, and what comes with it is this baggage of having to play in front of people and all of that, which I never liked.
Yeah.
But I wanted to play this, and it came with it. So I was like, okay, well, just don't look at me. And I used to play like that, just looking down at my feet and stuff, hoping that no one could see me. And I loved standing next to the drummer so I could hide behind the guitarists or the singers, because wasn't there to be a star. I wanted to play bass. I could have done it in my room and made records and I would have been happy. But the opportunities back then was about, you know, now I would be a complete bedroom bass player probably if I hadn't learned how to become confident. And now I enjoy performing, so it's fine.
Is that the difference between bass players and guitar players? Is it that bass players do it for the love of the instruments, and guitar players are all inherent posers, basically? Is that what you're saying?
I would like to say I like guitarists. I have many friends that are guitarists, but yes, perhaps. We're pretty comfortable in the background bassists, I think.
So what was I mean, look, I mean, your resume is ridiculous. And we can talk about perhaps, you know, some of the Hans Zimmer stuff from more recently, and you've got some other absolute stellar A-list artists on there. But what was the first big break? You know, what was it where you went, this is gonna, you know, it's gonna happen for me here?
Well, I can't say there's ever been a feeling of a big break. It comes and goes. You have moments and then they go away.
Right.
And it's quiet again. But the first opportunity that I had that kind of created that pathway was through doing that course, that music course, which was that I'd met somebody indirectly through a competition that I'd done, and he remembered me 2 years later. So when I was 19, I got a random phone call. My mum, you know, there's one phone in the house.
And pre-mobile.
Yeah, no answer machine, nothing like that. So my mum picks up the phone, is like, Mum, Yolanda, there's a man on the phone for you, kind of thing, you know, because I was quite shy, as I said. And so it was somebody that I didn't really know. We'd crossed paths. And he basically offered me opportunity to play for Jimmy Somerville.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because he was doing a new a single, and it was his own solo career.
Yeah.
And they wanted a bass player, and I think they wanted a female bass player. So a little bit irritating when I was young to get work because I was female often. But I'd been practicing, and I wanted to be known as a bass player, and then the gender to be a secondary thing in terms of my playing. So that it came through them just wanting a female bass player was annoying, but I just thought, well, when you get the invitation, you get in the door, and then let the music do the talking. If you don't have the music when you get in the door because you got invited in for dodgy reasons, I say dodgy because it can be a bit dodgy sometimes.
It's not changed though, has it? Images, I still see it now where, I mean, look, talent is obviously, you got to play, but I see now MDs just go, this is the look we're going for. So it's got to be this and this and this and this. And you go, it's a bit brutal because you're going to, you know, you're not going to get certain gigs because your face doesn't fit, and then you're going to get other gigs because your face does fit. So I get it, but that must be something that, you know, you go through your whole career probably going, does that or perhaps over time you've just learned to not let that dent your confidence. Like, you know, you don't worry that you didn't get that gig because it just wasn't that you weren't good enough. It's just they wanted a different image. And maybe you did get that gig. Maybe there was another bass player that went for the audition who was just as good, but they weren't the look that they wanted, you know. So does that...
Well, I've never known... it doesn't bother me now because I've never known when I haven't got a gig.
Right.
I've only done
What, you've never not got a gig, or you've never known?
Well, I've never known when I've not been selected. I mean, I did know once when I didn't get selected for something, but it wasn't an audition. It was just because my name came up for something.
Right.
And then I've been around too much. Been around the block too many times.
That's brutal.
Rejected. Which I found hilarious because I think I was about 30 at the time, you know. It was like, what? What do you mean I'm too old?
But I think that's fair,
Which
right?
is funny.
You know, I think you see a lot of the boy bands now put in, you know, and it's like, I'm sorry, but the guitar player needs to be some 21-year-old, and if you're not, that's just the image that they want for the tour. It's just, you can't really, you know, and you know probably better than most, you know, popular music is X% music and the other percent image. It's just like they're not, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I mean, I've only ever done, I think, 2 auditions in my whole life.
Wow.
Actual audition. And I got both of those, luckily. And then apart from that, you know...
That's fantastic.
I don't usually know. I think it's only fair. You know, people choose people based on whatever their criteria is. My criteria in my own band is, can you play?
Yep.
It really is.
Yep.
So I have a nice mix of people that work for the music.
Yeah.
But I know that with other genres and other people's tastes, they just have different reasons for choosing who they do. So that's on them, that's fine.
So you're doing the, learning all the Bronski Beat covers, presumably?
No.
Or you didn't do any of that stuff then?
It was great and it was sad. Okay, so at this point now, I had hopped from shop to shop, but I was still working, you know, in various shops to get my I was living at home with my mum, so I didn't have to pay bills.
Yeah.
But she really made sure that we were, you know, becoming independent and we were working for 15. You're giving mum some money towards the phone usually, and things like that. And it just carried on. So I was working in the supermarket, and when I got this Jimmy Somerville gig, I kept my job in the supermarket. So I was doing Top of the Pops and doing the White Room or whatever it was at the time. I don't remember which ones we did. We did a whole bunch, some Channel 4 stuff. And so my first live TVs was all of this, and I was still working in Sainsbury's.
That's amazing.
I know, it was funny.
No selfies, and imagine if that at the time, just like, yes, can we have a selfie with you? Was it trying to put some loaves of bread out on the... Okay.
So it was good, you know, because my feet were firmly on the ground, and I couldn't have quit.
It's so real, isn't it? It's like that is how you know, the dedication that goes in. You take the gigs and the risks, and you're still and you have your day job, and you just like it's. You work hard,
I didn't
right?
have to work because I wasn't paying the bills. My mum was really brilliant, but I wanted a bass.
Yeah. And
the bass I wanted was quite expensive. There was no way I was going to be able to get it unless I paid for it myself.
Well, we might as well.
I worked in a shop to earn money to pay for my bass. That's what I was doing there, you know.
Let's intertwine the career with like how your taste in gear has changed as well, because I'm sure, you know, people will be super interested on that. So your first proper bass then was?
A Guild B301.
Wow.
And it had a lurid green scratch plate on it. I was so shocked when I saw it. My guitar teacher bought it for me because I already told him I didn't want any guitar lessons because he made me learn Beatles songs, and I was just like, what is this? Let It Be. I heard that on the radio, but I don't own a Beatles record, you know, because we weren't raised with that music. I knew there were songs. Everyone knows the songs. Yeah. So I then realised that I wanted to play bass, and he said, I'll help facilitate that, which is really lovely of him. And my mum gave me a couple £100, which is a lot of money then. And he brought in this bass, and I saw it, and I was like, my bass! And I went, whoa, it's got a green scratch plate. It's very,
Weren't they massive?
Is that, to my memory, it seemed about right for me.
Size, okay.
I mean, I'm nearly 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
And I was at that age, I think it was about 15, I think I was already about 5'9".
Right.
So
I've
made
got
for
this
bass.
memory I've got this memory that the Guild stuff was like this massive body on there, but
no,
maybe,
it was
maybe
okay.
not.
Yeah, it was good.
And
so
that was your main sort of pro bass for a period of time, was it?
Not for long. I mean, that was about 2 or 3 years, and then I was saving for my bass. I bought a JD Mark King.
Yeah. Yes.
With all the lights, pull out thing.
Wow.
I know.
Yes, the what was the company in Essex that used to make? Was Status? Was that like a similar vibe to that? I know the headless Mark King with all the red LED.
Oh, this one had the headstock.
Right. Okay. Fine. Very cool.
Yes, and it was one of those
like bass superstar, wasn't he, of the 80s?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know there would have been tons and tons of like the funk bass players that would have been heroes to bass players, but like household name, like everyone's mum knew who Mark King was, you know. It's like he sort of made bass to like real front and centre pop instrument, didn't he?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually wanted the bass because, you know, it looked amazing, and my friend was selling it on the cheap.
Right.
It was his bass, it wasn't off the back of a lorry.
Right.
But I had to save up to buy this thing. And then I realised that every time I took it out of the bag, because of all the lights and everything and the way it looked, you know, with all the inlay, people expected you to be really happening.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take the pressure, man. So, that bass was mega heavy and it wasn't going to last for me. So then after that, I got, at the bass centre, I got a Levinson Blade, a Honey Levinson Blade, 92 actually, that was a bit later.
Yeah.
So, and I've still got that one.
Yeah, stunning
I don't
guitars.
keep instruments, I tend to sell them.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in collecting them. I know some people do, but I just can't do it because when I have a nice instrument that I don't play anymore, it has to go to a home. It has to be played, you know.
Right, that's cool.
Yeah, so I don't have those, but I've still got my Honey Blade because it's the most beautiful bass that I've ever owned. I still consider it to be my favourite, but it's just so heavy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that brand. I mean, I know it was I think it was a Swiss company, and they made the instruments in Japan, I think, and it was like a crazy high level. But it's funny, isn't it? How for maybe 5 or 10 years that was like an elite brand that you could get, and then it just sort of faded away into sort of, you know. But they were very early adopters of lots of active switching and preamps and stuff. So cool bass. Tell me about musically as well. Where's the what are the sort of artists that you're playing, and you know, are you staying predominantly as a session player, or are you touring a lot at this time so we're into the 90s right now?
At this point, so that's when, so after Jimmy, it actually led into the story that I was going to finish, which was working in the supermarket, doing the Jimmy Somerville thing. Then they offered us a tour, and that's when I quit the job.
Right.
And then the tour got cancelled.
Oh, okay.
That one, classic. But yeah, that was the beginning of my session career, and then from there was a few little things. I was doing a bunch of London bands.
Right.
I did a TV series with Jonathan Ross's Saturday Zoo, it was called. He did only one series, but it was a bit of a mad late night show, but it was live.
Right. Oh, a bit like that sort of Channel 4 type, you know,
yes,
the
very much so.
Tube type vibe, like chaotic.
Yeah, with comedy and everything going on, and that's when I met, or didn't meet, but Paul Weller was a guest on the show, and then he got in touch with me after seeing, I was in the house band, that's why I was on every week, and Paul invited me to come down and have a play. So I had that Levinson Blade, and that Levinson Blade had a little switch, which was a mid-range boost, but Paul hated my bass sound, but he liked my bass playing. He said, what does that switch do? Does that turn off that active circuit or what? And I went, yeah. He said, turn it off. I went, all right, and I switched it, and it was just a mid-range boost. I lied.
What were you in? Was that when
then I got a P bass.
Because was it Black Barn Studios? Was that where it was? It's not that far from here.
Nomis Studios in
South
Shepherd's
London.
Bush.
Yeah.
West, that was a great place. We used to all just meet up in the canteen at lunchtimes, and just all the musicians would hang out together, people you'd never get to play with, other bassists. Right. And Nomis was brilliant. It was fantastic. We were gutted when it closed, really.
Yeah, Fender had some artist centre there. That was the only reason I ever went there. But it's the... how was that then? So musically speaking, I'm kind of thinking of, you know, I don't remember... trying to think what Jimmy Somerville's solo stuff was like. I still remember it being very poppy electronica kind of stuff.
Well, I didn't get that far, because
right.
I only really promoted one single, and that's when we were booked in to rehearse the music.
Right.
I would have been some Bronski beat in there and the rest of Communards and stuff.
But Paul Weller then would have been... So are we going now, this is post-Style Council, when he'd gone back to much more sort of... how would you describe it? You know, the Paul Weller solo stuff for me is, you know, it's very, very much, it's not pop as such, is it? It's much more earthy kind of...
It's got a lot of blues rock in it. and British influenced
Very
blues
British,
rock.
that's right, yeah.
But the British blues rock is American, but
Yeah.
with British flavour.
So how do you, are you, I mean, you're obviously very comfortable just, playing across multiple genres of music. I don't think, if I look back at, your, again, the sort of artists you've played with, you've managed to avoid being pigeonholed as like a, oh yeah, we'll book Yolanda for this. It's just...
Well, it's funny though, when you get a job with one artist, so I got a job with Paul Weller, and then got lots more blues rock,
right,
pop-esque stuff after that. But my background is reggae, soul, funk and R&B.
Yeah.
With a little bit of jazz.
Yeah.
And fusion. My personal taste is actual jazz fusion.
Okay.
So I was in a very kind of like weirdly schizophrenic kind of existence of one side of me was very much caught up in, my personal taste, my personal listening habits. But my professional life was in the blues rock genre. And actually, no, I didn't listen to that music. I wasn't raised with it. So only the closest I was raised to it with would have been Jimi Hendrix, probably. It's the closest, and some blues stuff. And funk comes from blues as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that in there. So there's a little bit, I had some grounding, but when I joined Paul's band, I had to learn how to be the right bass player for his band. And I got rid of the blade because it was obvious it wasn't the right instrument for his sound. And he was right. And I got a P bass, a 78 P bass, a lovely bird's eye maple neck.
Yeah.
He was super happy. So I took the pickup out and I put a single coil jazz by the bridge. Well, I didn't do it. I paid a luthier to do it. But you know what I mean? I kind of had that little compromise to make me happy, but also fulfill the role of the band. And I learnt how to be more of a blues rock player.
Was that Steve White, Steve Craddock kind of era, Paul Weller?
Yeah.
That's a band.
Yeah, it was
That is
cool.
a proper band. That was definitely, I had all those records. So yeah, that was good band. And funny enough, again, we talk about image, and you sort of, you perhaps associate image with perhaps a more of a pop thing. But then you go, Paul Weller, it's so image conscious. You're never ever going to see anyone in Paul Weller's band playing a bass with LED lights on the front of it.
No.
Everything's got to look from an era, hasn't it? It's just got to look.
Well, when I was in the band, Paul didn't put me under any pressure to buy that P bass. I knew that I needed it because I could tell, that it wasn't working to my ear. And he never asked me to buy a new bass, but he was pretty happy when I did. He did make some comments, like when I came with my bass, it was about there, because I used to do a lot of more slapping then. He went, lucky thing he hadn't seen my JD, he went, why is your bass up so high? Who do you think you are, Mark King? And I went, no, moi? So I dropped the bass because I realised that playing with the bass up like that meant it really impeded my movements. And by dropping it, it changes the shape and how you play. So now I've got this sort of mid-range area where it's right on the hip. Yeah. And you can really dig in when it's there. When it's actually here, you're kind of a bit hunched over the instrument, I find. So that was another good thing that he asked me to do. He said, why don't you drop the strap? I was like, okay. So he did do some directive stuff. And another time, early on, he was watching me play and he went, come on, like this. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And he went, just play more, play harder, play it like you mean it. So I have to confess to having bleeding blisters on one tour. Because I've been playing nicely, and I was taught well to have a good hand position, all of this, on his gig, I learnt to put some real energy into it and play a lot harder, and but without whiting out the sound. Yeah. And that's a technique thing, to play hard without playing so hard that you actually choke the sound. I learnt that in Paul's band, and I learnt about it's actually once you're actually putting some energy into the instrument and playing it, you don't need to think about the audience. You then become performing. Yeah. So I learnt how to perform by actually just playing with more intention at the time, and that was through Paul, and that was when I was 22, 23, I think, something like that. Oh,
that's epic. That's epic. I mean, actually, that's. I don't think people. Well, maybe they do, but I sometimes don't think people give. People understand how artists like Paul Weller are such complete. They're like the. I don't know, like the captain of the football team. They don't just they don't just sing and write the songs. They get the best out of all of the people around them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's a fascinating. So 22 years old, Paul Weller. That's massive. And then how long did that gig last for?
I stayed a year. I left in the middle of recording Stanley Road.
Right.
Which was a bit of an error.
Yeah.
Probably should have stayed to the end, but I was really unhappy. I was out of my depth, and in terms of hanging out with all these grown men, touring, it was really hard for me. I was a real fish out of water where I'd come from, and I found I was unhappy. Oh. And I've always been good at sort of, figuring out what I should do next, and not just staying with things and being unhappy. So as much as I enjoyed a lot of it, the lessons that I learnt there, I'm so grateful for because of the playing stuff. But emotionally, it was really difficult. And it's something that I speak, because I work at colleges a lot, lectures and workshops. I talk about things like this and say, you do need support. When you're a young person, it is hard. A lot of people mask their anxiety or their loneliness or their missing home or just the difficulty of touring with, they mask it with drugs and alcohol. It's just a classic thing to do. But I'm not a party girl like that. I like a nice glass of wine maybe, but I don't go for it. I'm not a hard kind of party person. So I was right in there the whole time, experiencing my own misery. And I had to get off the road. Just
what is the... how do you live without regrets then on that front? How do you... I'm always interested in that kind of, and I think it's very relevant nowadays, of that kind of, that sense of well-being and you've got this, like, the outside world perception is you're living the dream. Yeah. You're playing the instrument that you love in a world famous rock band, getting paid, like, and you're going to go, I'm unhappy. How, it's like everyone else is just going like, pull yourself together. Yeah. But I get it, and that's a very classic British, I'm probably maybe more associated with men than women, but that kind of like, slap, chin up, get on with it. Yeah. And inside you are unhappy. So how do you do you have any instances where you think, maybe I should have just sucked it up and just pushed through, or do you go, no, I made the right decision all the time, and I turned down the gigs, because I was going to go mad otherwise.
Well, I don't see what I do as a reflection of who I am entirely. So, what I choose to do is opportunities that are presented to me, and they're invitations to join other people's lives. So I accept an invitation to join your life, your career, for a period of time, and I'm grateful for it. But it can't become my life, it's their life. Right. It's his career, his music, his environment, and I'm a visitor. And visitors should leave. Right. They should never overstay their welcome. So once I started to feel like that, I think it's time to move on, and I'm never caught up in the idea that there isn't something else on the horizon that might be, of great advantage to be available for, whether it's another gig. In this case, what happened next was I met my husband and had a family, which I wouldn't probably have done actually, because I left that gig and went on to another gig and met my husband in the actual environment, because he's a musician. Right. So that, my ex-husband, I might say. I'm not advertising, but just saying, just in case. So yeah, that was an important life moment. How can you predict that by leaving a gig that's a lot of other people's dream, you're gonna meet the person that you have 3 children with? I mean, so because those things are always, potentials are always there, I don't ever live with a sense of regret or a sense of, oh, if I don't do this, it's all going to be terrible. It's like, no. If I don't do this, something else can happen.
How do you balance that then, when perhaps you've been trying to focus on your own projects? I think I can understand that sense of, a great analogy of, like, you're a visitor. You're visiting someone's house, and there's always, when you feel it's time to leave, you should leave. Yeah. But have you ever been in a position where it's about the Yolanda Charles project and you're invested and it doesn't feel like there's a way out, or have you just never let it get to that point?
Ask me in a year or two, because
Right.
I'd say that my band, the current band that I have, is the first time I've had a band that I've really pushed hard on,
Right.
and that I don't work for other people most of the time.
Yeah.
I'd say 5% of my musical life is working for other people now, and the other 95% is working for myself.
Right.
And it's been about maybe 18 months, if not even that.
Okay.
So last year, as in, gosh, we're here already, but 22 was a whole year of solid, mostly just my band, and I'm still incredibly excited about it.
Right.
I'm really energetic. So I don't have that kind of another slog, you know, oh my God, we're still striving and we still haven't got anywhere. We released our first single in December, and the next one's coming out in February. You know, I'm early days and I'm super excited about it, so no.
So we'll in 2 years' time then we'll get you back, and we'll see whether or not you've managed to, because I guess it must be different. You're not a visitor anymore in your own band, are you?
No, I'm the queen of the palace.
You are.
And yes, and actually, impoverished or otherwise, because running a band is like, you know, it will break you. It will break you emotionally and financially. So just to warn anybody that's thinking about it. I love being the boss.
Right.
I try to create an environment where people can contribute as much as possible, but in the end, it's my party.
Yeah.
And I love that role. I've never had that role to that extent where, you know, and I say party actually because it's fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, because I'm silly and I love what I do, and the guys that I have in the band, and I've got a 6-piece altogether, including myself, but I also have a spin-off 4-piece, and that is my funk fusion.
What are you taking to the boiler room? 4-piece or the 6-piece?
That will be the 4-piece. With, actually, I have got one of my vocalists is going to be doing about 4 or 5 songs in the set, but it's going to be quite fusion. Cool. With elements of funk and then a few really nice soulful ballads. So it's a mix of my 2 bands together.
I'm sure we'll come back to the solo stuff at the end, and again, links will be below where you can find out. And the reason I mentioned the boiler room is that's the venue that's kind of around the corner from here, and Yolanda will be there at the end of January. So if you're seeing this video before then, go check that out. Okay, I think if we were to try and do the whole journey, we might be here sometime. So I'm just going to pick out we have to talk about the Hans Zimmer thing, only because musically, everyone who is in Hans Zimmer's band is next level. But what you've also done some massive, you know, pop and rock stuff. So what was the biggest, most like mind-blowing gig or anything that you ever did?
Gig? I don't know. Difficult to say, really, because they've got different qualities about it. I mean, in terms of numbers, the Nebworth 3 nights with Robbie Williams back in whenever that was, 2001.
Does that still hold the record for like the biggest? Because at the time it was absolutely the biggest live gig ever, or something, or in this country it was, or was it the fact that he did 3 nights in a row? And
might have been the
something
3
the 3 nights in a row. Yeah,
because it was. Right. I think it was something like 350,000 people or something over a period of 3 nights. That was cool. I liked that.
I watched that on TV, and that was the height of his showman. So the whole staging and everything was epic to watch. But what was that like to be part of?
A cog in the machine.
Really?
I mean, there was hundreds of people around, you know. I was just the bass player. I think after one of the shows, I was at the hotel bar, and somebody said, "Oh, did you see the show?" And I went, yeah. She said, "Oh, I had great seats," she said. And she said, "Did you have good seats?" And I said, "Oh, I had a great spot," I said. She'd seen the gig, didn't know it's me, you know, which is fine. I said, I've never quite lost that element of liking to standing behind the drummer or next to the drummer. So it's nice to be in that spectacle but not have that level of pressure that Rob would have had. I didn't have that, which was great. I could enjoy it more almost like a spectator, you know. Of course I'm playing, but, you know, it was a really great experience in a lot of ways.
That's nuts. And then from a fulfillment point of view, what's the, you know, which was the gig that, you know, and hopefully you've got many more still to come, but you know, at the moment, I don't know, what's the one that, you know, when you tell your grandchildren about gigs at some point or other, you know, it's just like, when you go, there was this one time. Okay,
all right. Well, I don't like talking about it too much because I don't want people to go and watch the video, because please don't watch it. But when I was in Hans's band and Prince died, that day.
Yeah.
My dad was actually poorly and he died not long after. And that was an amazing story in itself, what happened with my dad and with Hans and everything, because Hans is just so supportive and lovely in so many ways. But that day that Prince died, everybody was all shook. And the next day, Hans called me and said, would you sing Purple Rain at tonight's gig? And I thought, well, that's out of the blue. I wasn't singing on his gig. I'd never sung in front of Hans before. No one in the band knew that I could sing and play and stuff like that. And
I've seen the video, by the way. I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah, I sound like I was up till 5 o'clock in the morning crying.
At all. It's a very, very moving tribute.
Well, what was amazing for me personally, which people wouldn't know about, was the pathway to get to the point where I could get up and sing in front of 11,000 people, play a song on the bass and vocals that I'd never sung before, never played before and sung at the same time. I was reading the lyrics off a bit of paper on the floor. I had my dark glasses on because I'd been crying because of my dad and Prince combined.
Wow.
Me and Guthrie in a couple of hours, Guthrie Govan was on Hans Zimmer's tour with us, and we got on really well, same sort of age. And we were in one of our hotel rooms listening to music. It was about 5 a.m. So we were really knackered. I had really sort of puffy eyes. It was vanity, I swear. And then I had my glasses on so that people wouldn't see that I was actually looking down at the paper. I was like, Purple Rain, you know. Anyway, and I was a little bit caught up in a sort of semi-personal pressure to not say yes, because I really didn't want to do it, because there were singers in that band, good ones, and he asked me to do it for a few reasons. One was that, you know, the way that Prince supported women musicians, he always had really great players in his band. It was never a kind of like, oh, let's just get a pretty girl on drums or something. I mean, she'd have really, you know, right. So everybody that was there because they were great players, and he wanted me to stand up and be that representation of Prince's kind of one of the elements of his career. So that was one of the reasons. And the other one was that he said, why don't you show people who you are? Because I know you don't just play bass. I know you write songs and I know you sing. I've seen your videos on YouTube. Putting your videos on YouTube is a useful thing because it does instruct people about who you are besides what else you're known for. So I recommend it. Anyway, so then he said, do you want to do it? And I was going to say no, and I was tussling, like, should I? And I thought, if I say no, I'm going to regret this. And the pathway to get there was overcoming my anxiety as a child, a young person, being unable to really perform, learning how to perform through Paul, learning how to sing and play, which took me a long time to figure out how to do that. The independence part of it's very difficult. And it's got to a point where I can do it to a reasonably quickly. I can get to a high standard to do those independently. So I didn't need to rehearse it as much as I would have had to. So to be able to read lyrics, play the song and sing at the same time with no rehearsal was really tricky, but I was ready.
And deal with the emotion.
And then on top of that, I had my personal stuff. So I was looking down at this bit of paper, at that singing, the verse, and then I looked up to sing Purple Rain. You don't need to read lyrics to sing the chorus, funnily enough. And when I looked up, loads of people had their phone lights on. And it was that torch song moment thing. And
I can see even now, obviously, how much it meant to you.
Yeah, and I lost the plot a little bit on the chorus, and somebody just jumped in on the backing vocals and sang the chorus for me. But that was I think, one of the gigs. It's because it's a personal story. It's not just that it was in front of that many people and blah, blah. It was about me arriving at a point where I had enough confidence and overcome my problems to do it.
Is Hans Zimmer, is that the phone call that every musician kind of goes, that's really the one that I want? It validates me as a player.
I had one of those, but not that one.
Right, okay. Who was that then?
Oh, you want to hear that one?
Yeah, do you mean you had a phone call from another artist that you think, tell us about that one. When we'll come back to the Hans Zimmer.
Okay, all right. I'll jump forward a few years. So 2019, I got an email while I was on tour with Squeeze.
Right. Because you were a Squeeze bass player for 3 years.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, fine. Go on, come on.
Fantastic experience. And it was from a manager that said, when you get back off tour, we need to talk. I was like, what's this about? Because I thought, I know who you're the manager of. And when I got back, I got a call from Sting's management.
Right, okay.
So when you say about validating you, basically I got offered the role of filling in for Sting in his own band when he hurt his arm and couldn't play.
Oh, he broke his arm, didn't he?
Yeah, he had an injury.
In a sling or something.
He had an injury for quite some time. It was going to take a while to heal. And I got invited down to his rehearsal for one of his stage shows, which was near where I was, not far from where I was about to do a gig. So I met up with them in their tea break or whatever, had a chat with Sting, and he explained the situation, and at the end of the explanation he said, so, would you like to join the band? And I said, are you serious? Do you really think I'm going to say no? And he just laughed, and I said, no, thank you, yes, I would like to do that. So that was the story goes, right, it's the end of 2019, this is December 2019. I just got off the road with Squeeze, met with Sting, contract arrives in January, signs the contract now in 2020, and the tours were booked right through 2020 into maybe even to 21, I think. It was nearly a year's worth of a contract. And by March, I was thinking, this is looking a bit dicey. Then April, it was, we're going to have to push this back to July, because we had a residency at Caesar's Palace in Vegas.
It was optimistic, I remember that. So it'll be okay by the summer.
Pushing back. And by the time we got to about April 2021, my contract had ended and Sting's arm had healed, thank goodness. And we had a couple of conversations, and I was saying to him, it's probably, if I went to a Sting gig, I'd want to see you on bass if you can actually play, And he said, he'd had a rethink and he thinks that he's probably going to play bass again after all. So that came and went, but it doesn't undo. Well,
or just the fact that he asked.
Yeah, because honestly,
I'm surprised you say that, because I mean, look, my dad's favourite band was the Police, so we go back to What Did You Hear on Police and Steely Dan. It was like vinyl all the time in my house, but especially I think probably I related to the Police more because it was all the Steely Dan stuff's a bit heavy for a 7-year-old, It's just But so I get that, and as a album-selling artist doesn't get much bigger than that.
I was raised with the Police in my house. My mum was a fan, so she messaged in the bottle.
And the bass lines are all
it's one of the few artists I was going to work with that I actually was raised with listening to the music.
I still think the Hans Zimmer thing is like, I mean, I know Guthrie, reasonably well, but I look at the other guitar players as well that I think. The other guitar players won't mind me saying so, but I think Guthrie's the best guitar player that's ever been in that. He's probably the best guitar player on the planet. But it's like, you're looking at at the time you had, it was quite a big orchestra, wasn't it? The Hans Zimmer band had, and everyone was just mustard level playing. There must have been some crazy breakout jams and stuff in that band, weren't they?
It's so frustrating. No, we had to have a silent stage. We had a few jams, very rarely. I mean, me and Guthrie would occasionally just have a little bit of fun together now and again between the bass guitar, because he was on my left and then Hans was on my right. And before Hans would come in, me and Guthrie, he didn't have an amp, so I couldn't hear him unless we were dialed in. And once you're dialed in, I didn't have a splitter or, a little mixer, so I couldn't turn people off. So it's rude to just keep playing when everybody's got in-ears. Another reason why I don't like in-ears is because you've got to communicate with the sound guy all the time to get what you want. You can't just do it, yourself, as it were. I had an amp, so you could only hear me in acoustic drums on the stage.
So is the Hans Zimmer thing very, I don't know if controlled is the right word, but it's like, that's it, play the part, do the gig, go home. In my head, I had this sort of fairy tale vision that it was just like this melting pot of crazy creativity, and all of you were allowed to just, tear up something from time to time. And it's sort of, what a bummer.
Well, we had one, Didier Lockwood, do you know of him? He passed away now, violinist.
Okay.
When we were I think we must have been in Paris probably, he was invited to come and play on stage. So we had a jam then in front of, 13,000 people.
Wicked.
So that, jamming in front of 13,000 people is not jamming, is it? It's holding on with your fingernails and hoping it works out all right. But no, we didn't really have much chance for that sort of thing. And everything was written out.
Yeah.
But there were some songs, tracks, or parts of the composition where you could deviate.
Yeah.
But then often I would be doubling up trombones, even cellos.
Right.
Sometimes me and Guthrie would be playing unison, so I had to
Gotta
play
stay on
what was
target,
written. Yeah, and a lot of the time I was reading the gig because it was some of those pieces were 20 minutes long. Well, I think Dark Knight was pretty long, maybe about 15 minutes.
I can't.
Inception again, another long one.
It's all great. There's a clip. I'm now doubting myself as to whether or not it was Guthrie with the Hans Zimmer thing or Guthrie doing the Stephen Wilson thing. But there is a clip of him playing the most insane, and he just nonchalantly halfway through basically takes the cap off where it was, puts the cap on somewhere, just doesn't break a sweat. So,
yeah.
and I always think to myself, but all that band were just, it's just, you're crazy modest about how it's all like, it's just another day, it's like, it's fine.
Well, it's always somebody else's thing, so I'm always trying to fulfill what somebody else wants me to do. And that's my job, that's my skill, is to make the person that's hiring me happy. But to do that means you have to leave part of who you are out of the room, because what they want from you isn't necessarily all of what you are and what you do.
So where that probably does lead us nicely then onto your own stuff. You don't sound like someone who resents being told that's the part to play and, you're not the star in this band,
No.
In fact, you sound like someone that's actually gone, I quite enjoy that.
I like challenges.
So, yeah, so
it's great, yeah.
Is this when we see your solo project, is this some sort of pent-up inner, all bursting out of here I am, I've been here all the time, look at me, or I don't know, or is it still, do you still feel like you're, it's like, is it reserved? I don't know, I'm just wondering what your...
Well, I treat my band and my role in my band as a bassist, this is now, the same way I do as a session player.
Right.
I'm disciplined.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I'll try and overplay a little bit here and there and get away with it and not get fired.
Yeah.
My band, excellent. But mostly I'm playing the parts that work in the song.
Okay.
And I don't use it as a vehicle to sort of show off. I don't take solos in my own band.
Right.
I'm not a soloist bass player. I don't really like doing them. I always get a bit bored when I listen to bass solos, actually.
Not a big Stanley Clarke fan then or anything?
I'm not a big fan of bass solos.
Really?
Just not. I like moments and I like ballads now.
Yeah.
I like bass solos on ballads.
Yeah.
But lots of notes a minute on the bass leaves me a little bit cold a lot of the time. It has to be very lyrical, lots of space and some tonality considerations, not just... There's a lot of people can do that nowadays, and I don't find it to be particularly musical. But on ballads, you need the space and you have to be more expressive, so I'll accept bass solos on a ballad. It's just a taste thing. It's not a criticism, honestly. It's just my taste.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think I know what you mean. It's like, what's the gag? What's the worst thing about a drum solo? Is the bass solo's coming next. It's just like
see what I mean?
It's like
it's a reluctant kind of thing.
Yeah.
People don't
but
really
so
like it.
But I think when done in the right. I must admit that was another thing I got probably from my dad was listening to the Chick Corea and Stanley Clarke and where there were some next level bass players again who were absolutely given their moment in each piece to sort of go somewhere. And it can be done
when someone knows what they're doing.
Yes.
I don't, so I don't touch it. But when I hear somebody knows what they're doing, I have to go, hats off, brilliant. Most people would just go clatter, 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 clatter,
Yeah,
clatter.
I get that.
But the guys that can, I'm a big fan of Etienne Mbappé.
Right,
I watched the solo of his recently with John McLaughlin, and he took about 2 or maybe 3 the whole gig, and one that he played just floored me.
Right.
It was so fantastic. It just kept building and building and building. But he's got a skill in that area. Yeah. Others don't. And Hadrian Farrow is another person who plays beautiful solos. There's so many guys that do that, and women that do that really well. I just don't touch it, But what I do and how I do express myself in my band is that I'm the songwriter. and I'm the lyricist, and I'm I construct the initial harmony, and then I'm working with a guitarist called Nick Linick, who is turning into actually being my producer. He's pretty young, but he's incredibly talented. And bringing that element of his musicianship into this, my music's evolving it. So I'm not even fully in control of steering the ship now. It's evolved into becoming more of a band with everybody contributing. And my ego can totally withstand it. The music's sounding great. I need to get out of the way and let the music sound amazing, which means that I don't need to be a kind of star in it. But I do shape the initial offerings, and I write, what the songs are about and all of that. And so I'm happy with that. It's enough for me. I just want to be a bass player, and I also write music, and it makes me happy.
Well, I mean, I'm excited to see, where the solo career goes and what music you can produce and where the gigs go and all that kind of stuff. But I'm very conscious of the fact we haven't really talked much about gear,
right?
And we really should. Now, I think the last bass that we got to in the life was way back when you got the Fender in the Paul Weller's band.
Yes.
But have you kind of stayed kind of Fender-y? Obviously I know you've been, everything I've seen of you in the last few years has always been Fender stuff. When did you? So have you stayed kind of Fender-y pretty much throughout your career? Not
really, no, because I've played that blade. But yes, 2 single coil jazz. So it's basically a Fender.
Yeah.
It didn't. Yeah, it missed a little bit of that growl that the Fenders have. So it was a bit smoother sounding, which I appreciated at the time. But then when I needed more rock, pop, blues style, it wasn't the right bass. That's why when I actually did need a Fender sound, and I didn't sit well with the precision for some reason. So I got rid of that precision and got a my 62 Jazz. I got that for Rob's band. I used Lackland. Forgot which one it is now. Briefly with that band, and that's long gone as well. The Jazz is about to be sold. Yikes!
Wow, is it a real 62 Jazz?
A 64 or 65.
I'll pay the bills for a few months.
I don't know if anyone can afford it these days. Actually, sitting on the shelf waiting for someone to buy it. But it's pretty much the 2 single coil pickups. I mean, I just love that sound. But I'm actually branching out a little bit. So I've got a couple of Dingwalls now.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
I've got 2, and I'm just sitting with them at the moment. Combustion and something else, which is the name I can't remember. Something like Burner. Anyway, I don't know. Just
they're
showed
great.
up.
I mean, we do a bit with Sheldon, and I think he's another one of those kind of modern genius-y kind of guys when it comes to...
What a human being.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I really feel that a lot of the relationships that we build up between us, manufacturers and players, is a big part of why we actually stay with companies. And when people change and then the company doesn't actually support you, then, because the gear can be quite equitable, the build standards is quite similar across the top range. So then it's about the personal relationships after a while. And so Sheldon's one of those people that you want to stay with because he's just great as a human, and he makes great instruments too.
When did you go to the 5-string?
I was at one of the trade shows, and the Levinson blade, the honey one, was killing me. So I literally the nerves were getting pinched.
Right.
And I was on a gig at one of the trade shows, actually. I was playing the main stage, and my hand curled up like this. I don't know if anyone's had this happen, but the nerves were pinched, I think, from the weight. And my hands went dead. I sort of tried to finish the bass a bit like that. I just thought, this is just a sign. I can't play this bass anymore. It was really killing me. So I cheekily went to Mr. Levinson. And I said, I've been playing your bass for years and years and years, and I can't play it anymore. And I really need to figure out, are you making anything that's just a bit lighter than this one? Because then he picked my bass up and he said, yeah, that's too heavy for you. I went home, took my details, and then 2 basses turned up in the post. It was amazing. I was just like, what? I thought he was going to send me a sample and then we were going to talk, He sent me these beautiful blue blades of, I think they were called, one was the Penta and one was the Tetra. So that was my first 5-string that I'd say I put any time into learning how to play. And then I decided to learn how to play it. And I'm so ingrained as a 4-string player that even now, I sometimes will be like, oh God, because I just played 4 strings for so many years. But I'd say the fives now, I don't play fours at all now. It's just 5-string basses. And I lost both of those blades in a fire in a storage facility. I'd taken the jazz out and it was on my wall. It's why I sell my basses, partly why I sell them.
No point putting them in storage if there's just going to be a fire.
If you're not playing them, then you might lose them.
Does the 5... Is that a songwriting thing? Do you think as you've begun to develop your own ideas and want to pursue your own ideas more, does it just, I know it sounds stupid to just go, it just gives you an extra string, but is it about feeling like it's a more musical, it's easier to write on more musical, or do you not even write on a bass?
It's the filth.
You like the filth?
I like the filth.
The filth of the low B. I like it. Even got the stank face comes out like with the low B. It just works.
It's the filth. I mean, I love the range, the low range, and I wouldn't have a 5-string with a top C that way round, which I know some people do. Yeah. Because I don't want the high register.
You want to be whittling?
Really.
No.
I mean, I do. Well, no, I play some chords now and again. Have a go. It's fun for writing. I tend to write that you sing, you play the note that you want on the bass, and then you sing the note, and register wise it's going to be, you know, or something, you know, why not? So I don't need the actual harmony, because I did a course, an adults composition course. We sort of looked at you know, just varying techniques across the ages, and one of the things I learned then was 4-part harmony. In terms of how it's done in a more classical setting, and you have your melody, and you harmonise the bass next.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and which makes a lot of sense to me. So, and then you fill in the middle the alto and the tenor.
And is that so? You're coming at, you've got some melody in your head, and you're ready with that, and then you're adding the bass line and stuff to that, rather than, I think most people would think it would be the more normal to do it, some sort of groove or a riff on the bass, and then
once you've got the low and you've got the top line, the middle harmony's inferred.
Right.
I mean, there are different things you can do, of course, but the bass note shapes mostly the tonality of the chord, not the middle. That comes as a kind of extra bit. I mean, people will argue against this, I'm sure, but I know, having just reharmonised one of my songs last night, that when you change the bass and everything else kind of roughly stays the same, some things might need to change, but it really changes the whole quality of the song. So you can write just from bass, and when I teach, I do my little masterclass and stuff, I instruct how to, you know, harmonise from a bass line and write a melody from a bass line, and it creates much more of an interesting pathway to, you know, harmonise a song.
We should talk again from a teaching perspective. You know, clearly it sounds to me like you're not necessarily just going straight forward, you know, here's how to play bass tuition. It's what are you, have you got sort of structured courses online, or do you do appear at universities and stuff? But it sounds like it's a much wider, you know, composition style teaching. So what do you get most out of doing that?
Well, I love teaching bass on a one-to-one, but for detail, because I do feel that given the resource we have in the internet and all that, especially YouTube, you can teach yourself a lot of basic stuff. Maybe not the fine-tuning stuff, but you can teach yourself how to play songs. There's ways of accompanying yourself, all sorts of help that we never had, you know, years and years ago. So if you want to learn how to play an instrument, you don't really have an excuse. But if you want to learn how to play an instrument well, you need somebody to fine-tune you. So I do the fine-tuning thing, and that involves more thinking about musicianship, and it applies to all instruments. And I actually work with drummers more than with bass players.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I love working with drummers. In fact, I've got my first rhythm section workshop day of just bass and drums coming up late next month, actually in February. And I'm doing another one in April.
Where are you doing that?
The one in February is in London's The Premises Music Studios, Rehearsal Studios. And the one in April is at AB Workshops in Poole.
Right.
I'm not sure about the actual location of that one.
And these
but
are
it's
all on your website, are they? If people
They
want to find them
will
out.
be. One is.
Links
I'll be
below.
updating, yes. But I'll be doing those regularly. I'm also putting together my online course. And I've sort of separated it into bass specifics,
Yeah.
and then drums and bass specifics, and then actual musicianship separately, because the musicianship applies to all instruments. It's to do with listening, understanding dynamics, composition, application of ideas, and then the way that you can alter them if you make these kind of changes here and there and da-da-da. And, you know, ways of... I learned a lot of this from Hans Zimmer and working with classical composers, because I've done a fair amount of film soundtracks now. And I can see when they use certain techniques now with their writing
Right.
to create a whole sort of suite of music. And you can apply that to so-called pop music, which people don't do.
Right.
And create a way more interesting arrangement if you think more like a classical composer, but apply the thinking to pop, which is what I kind of teach a little
This
bit.
is deep.
It is.
This is
I
deep.
know.
I mean,
love
you
it.
are a busy person over the next few, year or two if the band takes off and the
Hope
teaching
so.
takes off and everything like that.
Yes.
I'm gonna end with. I mean, I'm so glad that you agreed to come down and chat, because
Welcome.
it's been absolutely lovely meeting you. But so I will just end with, and this is probably I don't think this is too cliche a question, but it's like you might. Who has the phone? So you got teaching, your own stuff set out in your own mind. It's all good. What's the one phone call that could come in and go, yeah, put all that on hold. I'm going to go and do this. Who would it have to be?
It would have been Sting.
So Sting would have to break his arm again, is what you're basically saying.
No, it would have been. But
Oh,
now
okay.
I've had the call.
Right.
If it came again, I probably wouldn't do it.
Right. Fair enough. So
Only because I've been doing this for so long and I understand the difference
Not-
between for someone and for yourself. And nothing beats
So there's
for
no call
yourself.
now?
No.
Wow.
I don't want to work for anyone else.
Sorry, Sting. To get a different
Can you
bass
imagine?
player.
How arrogant of me. No, it's not that. It's seriously because I understand what makes me happy. All I need is
that's
just
great.
to basically fund my band through selling music and fund my musicians by doing as many gigs as possible. And I don't need to be wealthy. I don't need to be on the front cover of anything. I just want to be able to just play the music that I've written that I love. I think my music's really great. I'm really proud of it and I love my band. What could compete with that?
Honestly,
I mean, really.
you're in such a good place. As in just,
I am. I
you've
do.
ticked. You've got all those kind of, there'll be so many musicians now just going, oh, please let me just have a career half as good as Yolanda's career like that, tick, tick, tick. And then you're going to do your own thing and you're obviously at peace with, your own feelings and stuff and where you're going to go, still looking unbelievable. I do not Wikipedia how old Yolanda is. It will just depress you. Thank you very much for coming in. You're happy? Yeah,
I'm
it's been an
happy.
absolute pleasure meeting you. So look,
Thank
you
you.
everybody for watching. Thank you for hanging on. And again, links below to go and find out a bit more about Yolanda if you want to. But yeah, look, I'm hopefully we'll come and see a show at some point this year. So
Please do. We play at Ronnie Scott's every month pretty much. We've got a residency on the Late Late Show.
doesn't get any better
Project
than getting
PH,
to see.
we're called.
Right,
So,
we're there. Right, well,
Brilliant.
thank you so much.
Thank
See you later,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
bye.